Juice. Oh, I like that. Kurt says if you don't take your seat, you can't have a drink. Got to take your seat, and then we'll give you a drink coupon. What? Yeah.
You're sitting right now. Extra ticket for you. Extra drink ticket.
All right, everybody. I now get to introduce my boss. So please give a standing ovation for the greatest man on the face of the earth, Digon President Kurt Sorensen, and special guests. Please welcome Kurt, everybody.
Paul, you're already the VP. I don't know where you expect this to work out for you. Last session of the day, I thought it would be fun to do something a little bit different. We are, by nature, a technology systems company. While we do train, host, and support and QA data, and we love getting out in the field every once in a while, our primary drive is to build software products. We have Flow, which is our mobile field assessment app. We have Sage, which is our data scrubbing rules QA engine. We have Spire as a integration tool set for middleware. And then we have Alloy, which is for reporting and dashboards. So this is our organizational drive, is to build these systems to support the SMS. And with that, I'd like to introduce Chris Pikars, our Chief Technical Officer, and he's going to be bringing on Gizmo. So, you may not be able to see him, so I'm going to show a little video, but last year we had one of the presenters come and show a quadricopter demo, and I think that it's fun to get people thinking about what can happen. Come on, you can do it, little guy. Come on. Yeah, yeah. The reason I called him Gizmo is because we don't feed him after midnight, and we definitely keep him away from water. For those that are allergen friendly, you can get a pet dog for about $1,600. No shedding. A lot cheaper than my wife's poodle that she wants. Honestly, I wanted to bring Gizmo up and give a little demo of what we saw was possible for this environment, is because for the price of roughly 2 cell phones, you now have something that in theory can move autonomously, go through stairs, follow you, take photos, scan a room with LiDAR, and take a digital map of its space, carry on its back sensing tools like maybe infrared, temperature sensing. The flip, don't try it, it just lands on its back. There is marketing materials, and then there's reality. It can, and bring things with it. Just in the news last week, a robot dog went in to support a police intervention, and they shot the robot. And it was the first killed robot in action. And I saw the tagline of hero, a hero robot. I mean, things are going to get weird is the title, and I think that that's just kind of some of the new labels we have to get used to hearing. Yeah. So I introduced this as a way to talk about artificial intelligence. 5 days after ChatGPT launched, it had 5 million users. And this has been described as the most important chart in at least 100 years. When you see that first red line and see that was its growth, and we have still 180 million users daily after 2 months, and it gets 1.6 billion visits and that's not even counting the Microsoft ties in with Copilot. And only 11% of those ChatGPT users are from an American audience. The medical language model from Google reached an expert level medical exam score with an 86% this past year. It's hard to really think about exponential growth in something like intelligence and what that can feel like. So if a picture is worth 1,000 words, what is a video worth? I don't know if you've seen this. It was kind of funny on Instagram there for a while. Stable Diffusion was released a year ago, and they put in the prompt, "Show me Will Smith eating noodles." And this is what Stable Diffusion could come up with, and they put together a compilation. Hilarious, right? And you can see that the shadowing is wrong, the facial is all over the map. But then, let me go back. Okay. Sora was released just 2 weeks ago to a limited audience. And it said, hey, we're going to give you prompts, and you're going to create videos from AI without any computer generation manually. So the prompt for this was several woolly mammoths approaching and treading through a snowy meadow with their fur blowing lightly in the wind. That was what it took to build that video. So I bring these up not because you guys are in the Hollywood section. You know, I know that the Screen Actors Guild had their strike for 118 days because they were worried about things like this taking their jobs. But I use it as a way to think about growth. If they went from 1 year ago making something that's laughable to now something that feels cinematic and feels emotional, when you can prompt it correctly, it just hits differently. All right. So, Reddit is what is used to train many of these language models. I found it funny that 3 years ago, somebody put a prediction and said, in just a few years and a few sentences, AI is going to be crazy and allow us to build photorealistic videos. The top-rated reply to that is a few years, maybe for our great-grandkids. They thought it was going to be 100 years, and that's what they got rewarded for on the upvotes, and it turned out to be correct in 3. So don't underestimate the scale of what exponential and logarithmic growth can do. The reason I brought Gizmo and the reason I'm talking about AI is because we are in a dramatic position shift where it's going to be not the factory robots that you hear about that have specific programming and specific tasks within a specific domain. We're going to get ready for general purpose humanoid helpers. You have the combination of machines that are inexpensive and powerful with this new language models and intelligence that can help it actually make decisions without pre-programmed logic. The reason that the factory robots have been stayed in the factory is because you can give it instructions. Move this, move that, do that. Very simple, but it does not scale to the real world. The real world has an amazing amount of complexity that we have to live and work with every day. Just doing dishes, what I am terribly excited about never having to do again, is extremely challenging. You have a slippery surface, you have dynamic environments, you have obscured things, and you're trying to clean. It's just a huge challenge for something like robotics. And I'm going to bring up one example. This is Figure. And from a company that started a year and a half ago, this is the robot that they just released on YouTube 2 weeks ago. And it is the first time that it is being interacted with as natural speech in real time with no helper. There's nobody with a joystick telling this robot what to do. The person that's interacting with the robot says, hey, I'm hungry. Can you give me something to eat? The robot scans the table, finds the only food that it can find, picks up the apple and hands it to him. Then says, right, can you tell me why you gave me the apple while you clean up? and he responds, I found the food, he picks up the trash and he puts it into the garbage bin. So, natural language, being able to provide instructions to a robot, is going to be what I consider the next space race. How they work is you have this language model that allows a robot to understand what you mean, and then you have this neural response to the body controller and these machines. What I found fascinating about this chart, and what I am interested to see where it goes, is 200 megahertz feedback loop. To put that into context, that gives it a 5 millisecond response time between when it grabs something and the sensor's feedback to the computer if I need to grab harder or softer. The human response time is about 250 milliseconds, and this one's running on 5. Just from a motor control perspective, your cat, 30 milliseconds. So, obviously we have a lot to go. These are proof of concepts, these are limited demos. But Figure is not alone. This is a company that was started a year and a half ago. They've already raised $675 million. They have a $2.6 billion valuation. Started in 22. With contributors like OpenAI, NVIDIA, whose stock has been on a record pace, Intel, Microsoft, Jeff Bezos, and Parkway. The biggest of the bigs are getting behind companies like this. They can blend what you're interacting with and seeing with ChatGPT and these language models with robots. NVIDIA's CEO announced the Groot foundational model for humanoid robots back in February, and brought out a bunch of companies that they're working with. So your Boston Dynamics, the guys that are running around in Amazon carrying boxes, these people were there. It is in my mind, modern day space race. Amazon put in $1 billion for AI robots. Google plans to invest $2 billion in Anthropic alone. They spent $11 billion on their AI last quarter, with the predicted $50 billion spend in 2024 alone. From one company, $50 billion. Meta is committed to $15 billion per year on its metaverse. Tesla is building out their Optimus robot. And the reason I'm excited about Tesla is because not only do they have a wealth of AI experience and machine learning from their cars, their cars are basically driving robots. They actually have manufacturing chops to put together a large-scale manufacturing environment with their factories right now. So they're building with an idea for mass production. Boston Dynamics and their Atlas and their Spot Dogs are amazing, but they're $80,000. So when you realize you want to get this in the home and you want to get large-scale deployment, you have to think, can I actually build and maintain these things in mass? Tesla's getting ready for that. And that is US. You think China's interested and left behind on this massive investment? The blend of corporate and private money is immense. From the Middle East countries like Saudi Arabia and China, they each are pushing their homegrown wealth into this leading chapter of where the world is going to be. And for many people, it feels, dramatic. I talked to my great-grandfather later in his life, and it was fascinating for me to talk to somebody that saw the first light bulb in town, the first car drive through, the first time he saw a plane fly overhead, and then he saw a man land on the moon. If this goes as many people predict, it's going to be a tidal shift like the Industrial Revolution. This is not just a cell phone type innovation. When we have generalized intelligence and mass production of humanoid robots, it is going to be a dramatically different world that we live in. So, with that, just throw that out there. What about the SMS community? We are not a technology conference. I want to bring it back to home. I think the fun things to think about, language models, being able to say, help me make that 1391. Give me a good description for that project. You know, there's certainly tools for helping you with your everyday life. Computer vision. And lastly, for everybody that does have a government badge on, it was a big deal when they tried to get drones to fly over roofs. And it was fairly easy to shut that down, but what are you going to do when somebody comes to your security gate with a robot and says, hey, we're going to go do an inspection? Now, I mean, really, I don't know what they would even say. If the robot was in a suitcase, maybe they wouldn't care, but I've not seen any terms about it. And what if it's taller? What if it's made in China? What if it can lift more than 50 pounds? We're going to have to build parameters that we say, what types of autonomous moving land-based machines are we going to allow in our sensitive and secure environments? And I think that you should start thinking about that now, because those policy discussions that generate FAR clauses and generate gate practices don't happen overnight. And for me to be able to acquire something that can run and dance and do tricks for $1,600, that means that the big boys in the room are also playing with more expensive toys that are going to do better things in the next year. So be prepared, the ask is coming. With that, where'd Chris go? Come on up. Let's talk about more of what the Digon R&D is looking at.
Thank you, Kurt. All right, so I'm Chris Pykars. I'm with Digon Systems. I run the technology team there. Despite having a manager title, I still write code every week, every day when I can. So if anyone has any questions, want to chat about SMS API, what we've been learning there over the last few months, Builder API, or even our own product stack, feel free to find me in the reception after this or out on the Riverwalk after that. So Kurt's talked a little bit about AI already, and I want to dive specifically down a more narrow path here and talk about machine learning and how it's going to affect the way that we all collect and store our data right now in Builder and in ESMS. So AI is deceptive because it's an umbrella term that encompasses a variety of different sciences and technologies. There's robots, computer vision, all these things that Kurt already talked about. Machine learning is an element of AI that is arguably a foundational element to it. And what is machine learning? Machine learning is using computers to find patterns in existing data and using those patterns to make predictions against new data. Really easy example is weather forecasting. We have days, weeks, months of history of atmospheric conditions, and we can predict weather using that historical data compared to old weather to take new atmospheric data in and try to predict the weather for next week. Everyone knows forecasting. Some other examples here, object recognition and classification, the ability for computers to look at images and identify objects in them, and not just identify the object, but classify the object. If you have a Ring doorbell and it's ever alerted you to someone at your front door, that's a computer performing object recognition, seeing that there's someone at your front door, and then classifying it, saying it's a person or a package that's been delivered. Natural language processing, the ability for computers to just communicate with you in natural human language. This has been made a lot better by the advent of large language models in the last few years, LLMs. But it's not new. If you had a GPS in your car 25 years ago, a Garmin, that told you to turn left on Main Street, that was an early form of NLP. So you see how far this has come in a relatively short time. So diving deeper on language models and how we can tie this into Builder. So like I said, NLP and LLM allow for more human-like interactions with technology. You can talk to your phone. See a lot of phones in the room. We're not going to call out any personal assistants here, but you can say, what's the temperature right now? What's today's forecast? What's the weather outside? How cold is it going to be on the Riverwalk tonight? And your phone can interpret that and know that you're just asking, hey, what's the weather? It's the same question no matter how you ask it. And that's AI being able to use semantic understanding of your sentences to derive meaning and provide answer to that. So how do we get to the point where we have a model that we can use like this? We need to train them. It's kind of like hiring a new employee when you try to use these AI models. If you get a new employee fresh out of school, they may not know a lot. You may have to train them for a while, months before they can be effective on your team. If you are fortunate to be able to hire someone with experience who's been in the industry for a decade, it may just take them a few days, a few weeks to get up to speed on how your business operates, how your company's doing, whatever they do. They don't have to learn the fundamentals, they know that, they're just learning how to work with you. So these models can be the same way. You can try to train a model from scratch and compete with the big guys that Kurt already showed up. It's gonna take months, both in terms of the time that you need to spend preparing data, but then also the time spent processing that data. The other option is fine-tuning a model. You take an existing model that's fairly well established, already knows language, it's ChatGPT-like, train it on your data, in this case perhaps builder data, so that it can better understand that data. And the reason you need to do that is these large generic models like ChatGPT, they're generic. And we are working with very specific data structures here, like uniformat. It's not something that ChatGPT is going to know a lot about. If you send it a picture of something, it's not going to respond with, oh, that's a B1040, whatever the code may be. So training these models relies on quality data. You've heard the phrase junk in, junk out. If you use junk data to train your AI, it's not going to be a very effective AI. And in a lot of ways for us in the builder space where we have this narrow, already defined data set in ESMS, we need to be careful with how we use that data. So there's a lot of folks, and I'm sure some in the room, if you want to raise your hands, who are using builder data fields today for things they weren't meant for, like storing a model ID in a zip code field, prefixing comments with inspector names, dates, things like that that are not relevant to the data the field is meant to contain. So having dirty data like that, that unclean data, again, when you get to training your model on it, is going to cause problems. Sorry I'm trying to rush through here. I know we have cocktails out there not too long, so I'm not going to keep you. If you can see this, sorry if it's really small, it's not too important. This is a screenshot of an actual data set that we've been using to try to train a machine learning algorithm on being able to predict an inspection rating based off a human description of a thing. So in this data set, we have the inspection comments. This would be what an inspector put in while describing something they were assessing. On the far right, we have the CMC ID, the catalog ID, because we want to know what these comments are relating to. How we describe an air conditioner is going to be very different from how we describe a roof, for example. In this data, there are a lot of issues. And if we look at this, I will go through these one by one here. There's a lot of colored boxes on the screen for those of you who may have trouble seeing color or on a tiny screen right now. So there are 4 different colored boxes here highlighting different issues in this data set that would prevent us from immediately starting to use this data to train an AI. These things in red, these boxes here that show someone's name followed by an abbreviation, typically like your assessment firm or a contract ID, and then a date, common stuff that we see in assessment fields. This is going to throw off any AI that you're trying to train off of this data, any model that you're trying to train. All these things highlighted in orange on the left, the quarter 6776. This is data that if you think about it, it's being repeated here. It's showing up in every row that we're trying to train our model off of, but it's meaningless. And the risk here, best case scenario is your model ignores this and you just waste time processing. Worst case scenario, you start to train your model that quarters 6776 are all very average, because everything here is an A. So if we're not careful as we start training AIs with our data, we can train them the wrong way. We can make the wrong associations on the data that we're trying to send over. Some other issues here in brown, these are comments that they don't describe anything. This is just saying, it's almost an inventory list. Why aren't these sectioned out? But we're just listing things out. This is not going to provide any value to any potential AI in the future trying to get information out of this. And then lastly, at the bottom here in the purple box is a real problem with data when you're trying to train an AI, in that we have virtually identical comments here. Quarter 6776, exterior structure, the stucco is cracking and peeling in several areas. But they have completely different inspection ratings. We go from an A- to an R+ here. So what does that mean to a computer? It's hard to say. So with inspection data like that, when you're putting text data into Builder, I'd encourage you going forward to really think about how you're using those data fields. Comments especially, if you want to be able to parse information out of that with an AI someday, they need to be meaningful. And that comes down to what actual assessors and inspectors in the field are putting into the system and how they're putting it there. just same deal with the consistency across what they're putting in there and these prefixes on it. So with ESMS, obviously we're getting new custom attributes, and that should make it a lot easier for everyone to avoid this problem. There should be no reason to be using a zip code field for a model number in the future when you can just add a custom attribute through ESMS and store the data there. Image classification is another aspect of machine learning here that we've been looking into using builder data. Like I said, with the ring example, machine learning can be used to identify objects and images. Think about Builder and the data set that we're building there. We're taking photos of tons of things throughout facilities as we go through there. And while we're taking those, we're already associating that photo with a specific CMC ID. We're putting comments in and describing the photo. We're collecting a lot of data that is great and prime for training these machine learning algorithms. But it only matters if you're collecting good data, again. So with photos, in order to train a model on photos, just backing up a little bit here, there's a lot of data prep that needs to happen. You can have all these photos out in the field, but to tell the computer what it is you're looking for, you need to go through and indicate what is highlighted. So these screenshots on the left are from a program called Label Image. It's open source freeware. It's pretty popular for tagging these things. And what I've done is I've highlighted this door on the left in blue and this vent on the right in green. You can see on the right here, look really close, I can't read those. But there are two different CMC IDs. Down below, there are three different vents highlighted. Again, this one in the middle is easy to see with blue, but you can kind of see the green borders around these other two. Tagging these took me like 10, 15 seconds per image. It's not a big deal. But if we need to train an AI on thousands of images with a huge data set like this, that's going to add up very quickly. So starting to collect this data at the point of data collection, where the data is being generated by users in the field or reviewed by folks in the office, taking the time while you're collecting it to tag it and prep it for machine learning is going to pay off hugely in the long run when your data is just ready to go and you don't have to spend a ton of time in the future massaging it. Going back to the inspection example here, in order to actually train our AI on this, we had to clean up this data manually. And with every different instance of builder that we look at or a different assessment firm that has a different format for our comments, that's different cleaning that we have to do. And it's a lot to put together. And again, the time investment just adds up hugely. So tying it all back to ESMS here, then we'll get Kurt back up and get you all out to drinks. Again, those custom attribute fields, make use of them. They are going to be crucial for keeping your data clean. As you move forward from Builder to ESMS and start working on those migration plans, use that as an opportunity to clean up some of these sins of the past. If you're using a data field for something that you shouldn't be, when you migrate to ESMS, create a custom attribute and get that field over into the new field that you've created. Don't keep your data dirty here. This migration is going to be a great opportunity for this sort of cleanup for anyone who wants to make use of it. And then just a shout out to Matt and Searle. We've been making use of the ESMS API for a little while now. It's fully RESTful, it's OData enabled for those of you who know what that means. It's fantastic to work with. It is a lot faster than old Builder has been. Just for a quick demo here, we have a utility. This isn't much, just showing that we can make a connection. This is going to be a little slow because my computer is talking to a computer in Guam right now where someone who's authorized to use this is getting us logged in. Oh, all right. Sorry about that. I'm just not seeing it. There we go. Okay. Cool. So again, nothing much here, but this utility is running on my laptop, reaching out to a computer in Guam, reaching out to Searle's servers, getting the data back to me. This loaded a lot quicker. This is similar to the list of buildings, assets that Matt was showing before, being pulled over the new RESTful API from ESMS. And again, just to refresh the page here, those of you who have used the Builder API or used Spire through the Builder API will recognize this is just a lot faster than it used to be. So we're really excited about that, Matt. Looking forward to doing more with it. So that's all I have. I'm going to get back over to Kurt here as I finish fixing my screens. All right. Thank you, everybody.
Yeah, so I wanted to leave a little bit of time for questions. As Chris was mentioning, having a logical understanding of what you write down and how you structure your information is going to allow you to use it in the future. If your comments are always trying to do the same thing, like how do I build a project, if you use it in the same way, it's going to be helpful for the machine to help you use it in the future. From a personal perspective, I would say start playing with and getting comfortable with the open tools that are available. ChatGPT is free. The Copilot from Microsoft embeds with the Word applications. You're going to see these things thrown at you. The more you can amplify your reach by using these tools to augment your workplace, I think the longer we can push off this culling of jobs that is going to happen. You know, we're eventually training robots to do what we used to have to do. And it's a real reality, and I think we all have to have our eyes wide open when we talk about what we're going to do to prepare for that. From challenges, as soon as Matt showed his slide and I saw the 50 million inspections, 100 gazillion photos, and I start drooling because for us to train based upon our limited data set was very challenging. So I'll be talking to Matt, see if I can to get access to more. The other piece that we have to also understand is you'll hear things like compute limited. Training a model and being able to have a model respond in real time is very intense from a computer perspective. We have to have clean, consistent, reliable energy. You're going to see every federal agency now has to have like an AI chief. They're going to be absolutely looking for more energy. And that means more data centers. That means all of you are going to get tapped for, we need to upgrade our grid. Those utilities are not going to be optional. They're going to be mission critical and sensitive to continuing your mission. It is time intensive to get these things ready to go, and adapting those models for ESMS is going to help with giving the tools to the leaders to make better decisions. If we can see in the data, hey, there's an anomaly, and we can use AI to not just like our current QA, which is, I see that you're amber and I don't have a photo, throw a flag in the air. Now we can say, man, that 25-year-old water heater with a similar comment across 37 other thousand people trends to be in this kind of range, or we're missing something in your building, because we expect that a building of this size is going to have a much more intense, air conditioning load. So why are we not seeing that in the data? It's going to be more intuitive about how to scrub for data quality, for completeness, and understanding, is this information a valuable thing for you to use? So it's kind of an odd conversation to end on, but maybe a beer will loosen you up. Is there any questions you guys had for either Chris and I? Because Chris is obviously the technologist. I asked him to showcase what we could do from a demonstration perspective. But all right, hearing nothing, I will absolutely thank WSP. I mentioned during the introduction that our mission is to build community. Sometimes just having an opportunity to share a beverage and gather in the same place builds those connections. So thank you for WSP for sponsoring that, to allow that to continue. It is in the foyer, and it also spills over into the pool area. So get some fresh air, and Paul has something to jump in with.
Yeah. Thank you, amazing Digon team. My God, you guys are great. Wow.
Fine. Where's my line?
Joe Allison had a request that if anybody's from the Army, the Reserves, or the Guard, to come see him for potential dinner plans. I think he said he's going to buy you all dinner. So go ahead and go see Joe. And then I wanted to bring up Casey Norris from WSP.
A little shorter. Surprise! Here's the presentation you didn't know you were getting. Promise this is going to be the shortest one yet. But as we wrap up this day of innovation and the sharing of ideas, we invite you to relax, enjoy some craft cocktails, and mingle. This is the perfect opportunity to forge new connections and celebrate our industry. So, on behalf of WSP, welcome to the Summit Social. Here's to an evening of good drinks, great company, and even better opportunities. Cheers. Wait.
All right, we're done for the day. Try to contain yourselves and keep it to a 2-drink minimum. And we'll see you out there. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow. Thank you. Good night.